I wake to a light that does not burn, but leans close. A light that whispers instead of striking. My hand meets ground that feels like earth and not earth at once. Granular and glassy, warm and impossibly clear. Beneath my feet, a river of slow gold moves. Not water, but a current of light. And the sky is a dome that sighs through colors. Pale blue, pewter, a silver that remembers dawn. For a moment, I do not know whether I left or was left behind. The world here is too tidy, too patient. It keeps no traces of hurry. The idea arrives like a name remembered from childhood. Kepler-452b. They called it an Earth cousin once, a planet that looked like our planet if someone had smoothed its edges and kept only the best seasons. I do not remember traveling. I do not remember a ship, a dream, or a long sleep. I only remember opening and finding this. The absence of a familiar street, the silence where the city's breath should be, makes me lean toward thinking it a vision my heart is crafted to rest in. But the planet breathes. The planet has rhythm. The rhythm is not mine. Everything here is whole in a way that makes me ache. Trees of crystal sprawl and hum. Their leaves are small prisms that catch memory and return it as a light I can almost feel in the mouth. There is no litter, no cracked pavement, no stubborn scorch marks from 1,000 careless summers. No neighbor's shout, no oven's impatient beep, no radio singing a song from last year. Absence is here a kind of perfection that presses like the palm of a hand over the mouth of the world. I walk, and the ground receives me like an unhurt thing. My steps are quiet. Even my breath slides smooth as if the air were oil. I want to measure myself. I reach inward and search for my pulse. The silence of the pulse startles. Either it is muted by something in this light, or I left the part of me that counts heartbeats back on some street with its litter and its broken light. I taste a small panic and try to name it. The name refuses to come. In its place is a tenderness toward my own restlessness, as if I'm watching a child sleep in a strange bed and wishing I could cradle the child back into a home I do not know how to find. A voice, not spoken, touches me. Did you ask for this? Maybe I said it once, in a rush and a complaint, as people do. If only the pain would stop, if only the interruptions would cease, if only the nights were easier and the mornings less heavy. Perhaps, without knowing how prayer is answered, I made a bargain with a part of myself that wanted quiet above all things. This place is the answer to that bargain. It is the absolute of the wish. It is the fulfillment that had no cost to speak of. But an answered wish is not always a gift. The absence of struggle here is almost violent. Without struggle, the world becomes a museum of things arranged in calm. Beauty is everywhere, but like too much sweetness, it dulls the tongue. I notice this like a bruise forming on the inside of my mouth, smooth, slow, insistent. On Earth, even chaos had texture. The honk, the steam, the sudden rain that crosses a summer afternoon and leaves everything washed but trembling. That chaos taught me what to hold. Here, things are held for me so completely that my own hands forget what giving feels like. I remember the city. I remember a window that always fogged in winter. I remember the way the kettle on a narrow stove sang like a small, impatient friend. I remember a woman I once ran into on a tram who smiled because she had misplaced a glove and found it the day before. I remember the thin miracle of a neighbor bringing stew when a hospital visit made the rest of the street feel like a place too loud to be gentle. Those small, ordinary salvations are what make a life tolerable and beautiful. There are 1,000 tiny rooms in which a person can be less alone. Here, there is no lost glove, no stew, no hurried kindness. There is instead a sweeping, impartial mercy that keeps everything in space and time arranged in a way that would make complaint impossible. If I had the power to order the world like a restaurant menu, I might have chosen this. If I were younger and more certain that comfort is the same as goodness, I might have accepted it and never missed what I had never tried. But sitting here, touched by this merciful light, I feel a strange hunger for the roughness I once fled. I am suddenly ashamed of the number of times I prayed for absence of ache without seeing that the ache is an instrument. A tree of light bends close, and for a moment I imagine speaking to it, but no spoken language fits. Instead, an idea comes through. What makes a good thing mean something is not only its existence, but the contest of arriving at it. The worthless ease of a world where every desire is instantly granted has nothing to oppose it, so the soul drifts like a boat with a cut sail. If there is no need to hope, the heart grows thin. Hope grows its muscles by being given something to pull against. I thought I wanted to float, but I did not realize how much I needed to row. Memory arrives in fragments like a neighboring country on the horizon, the details of my old life, a coast I recognize, the smell of rain on hot concrete, the way a streetlight can look like gold smeared with a thumb, the small softness of someone handing you a mug with both hands because hands are all they could offer. Those hands, imperfect and warm, taught me more about the world than any flawless sky can. I begin to understand that what I once called hindrance was sometimes an invitation to become tender. Here, the sky does not know the color of sorrow. It is an offense to sorrow the way an entire clean room might insult a life that has been lived. On Earth, I learned how to invent gratitude because I had reasons. Gratitude is a muscle trained by absence and repair. You learn to be grateful when a lamp that was broken is fixed, when an apology arrives like a late train, when you find a place to sit and breathe after a long day that tried to unmake you. On Kepler-452b, there is no late train because everything always comes on time. There is something elegant about that. There is also something that leaves the body hollow. It hits me then that every prayer I uttered for an easier life had a sibling prayer I did not say. Help me to love what is hard to love. I prayed for less pain, but forgot to pray for more patience, for wider arms. I asked for a simpler sky, but not for a truer eye. The human heart does not learn magnitude under a smooth surface. It learns by scraping itself on the roughness of days until tenderness grows calloused and becomes a shelter. My hands, so used to fixing insignificant things, tightening a loose button, stitching a hem with 2 quick fingers, feel redundant here. The urgency in them has gone slack. I ache for the small domestic urgencies that used to anchor my mornings. A child late from school, a plant needing water, a neighbor's complaint that becomes a story at dinner. I realize how petty those urgencies seemed when I was in their thick. They were the loom of life, pulling the pattern through. Without them, pattern loses its shape.
A doubt arrives like a small bird at the rim of my mind. Am I still on Earth? Had I dreamed myself away, or had the world somehow shifted me? The question is not the practical one of coordinates, but the deeper, stranger question of belonging. Where does a person belong if not where the commitments to other fragile beings lie? Even if this place were real and I could stay in the shining hush forever, what would I be without the small, messy obligations that make me ache for others and make me awake in the night to check if they're breathing? The planet's completeness is a kind of loneliness dressed as perfection. I remember prayer, not the neat printed prayers, but the low, selfish ones said in the dark, a whispered pleas for someone's safety, a blind petition for the strength to get out of bed. Those prayers were not petitions for a perfect sky, but for connection to a heart other than my own. The cry because of a late bus, the grateful laugh at a surprise visitor, the anger at someone who wronged me, and the relief of reconciliation. These are breaths that fed me. In those breaths, God was not an abstraction, but a presence that could be touched by small gestures, a hand on a shoulder, a pot lifted from the stove. The very idea of being chosen for ease feels smaller now. If God had wanted to keep souls soft and untested, perhaps the entire universe could be arranged on a lattice of comfort. Instead, I am given streets to walk that are not smooth, people who disappoint, small losses that rearrange me like wind rearranges a messy room into a new, stranger order. In that rearrangement, I found meaning I did not recognize until I saw the alternative. A shadow moves at the edge of my vision, and for the first time, there is a depth to the light around me. It places a weight on my chest, a real and surprising weight, like a hand touching the small of my back. The pulse returns, not as an echo, but as a drum. I realize then that maybe I never left the earth, but only went to a place my heart builds when it is tired, a hypothetical home where nothing ever goes wrong. The pulse says I'm still made of the same fragile material, bone, blood, regret, hope. If this is imagination, it is a generous one. It has shown me what I wanted, the promise of easy skies. If it is real, it has shown me a version of paradise that denies me what I most need. Either way, the truth arrives. God choosing Earth for me is not a small thing. Choosing a place where sorrow is allowed to teach, where hunger can precede gratitude, where absence makes return sweet, that choosing is a kindness far stranger than any neat safety. To be entrusted with an imperfect home is to be given a field in which courage can grow. My chest lifts with a cautious laugh. I thought I wanted no problem, but what I wanted, what I always wanted in the secret rooms of myself, was to be made honest. The clutter of life on Earth, the stalled elevators, the neighbor's late-night phone call, the uncertain job, the ill child, these are the instruments that sculpt us. They make a person who can kneel, who can forgive, who can hold another's wet face without flinching. In gratitude, the small things are big. In perfection, they would be invisible. Then a wind moves across the plane of light, carrying a scent I know before my mind names it. Rain on hot stone. A memory breaks open like a shell. I see a streetlight wobbling in a storm. I see my mother's hand scooping dough. I see a friend I loved so much I did not know how to keep him. These images hurt and bless at once. Tears come, quiet, human, warm, and I feel them on my face, the salt of a life that was never kept at bay. I have found the use of grief again. I lift my face and hold the sky as if I'm asking it a final question. Did I really need this? The answer comes not as thunder, but as a small clarity. You needed to be known by scarcity and abundance both. You were never meant simply to be safe. You were meant to be holy through the act of returning. The earth was never a punishment. It was a workshop, a school, a cathedral disguised as a planet. The mercies here are not the tidy kind that make complaint impossible. They're the kind that let hands be busy, that let bodies mend each other after they break. I walk back toward where I must have woken. The golden river slows like a clock winding down. The domed light softens to a hue I recognize. The pulse is steady now and strong, like children drumming in a far room. When I stand again on the soil that is real, soil that sticks to the shoe and smells faintly of compost and yesterday's cooking, the whole thing falls into place like a picture sliding into its frame. I am here, and the ache of memory does not fade. I breathe the honest air and say what I have been learning. Thank you. Not the generic thanks we fling through prayer, but the kind that tastes of specific nights and hands and forgiven words. Thank you for the weight of need, for the days that taught me how to look up while I was kneeling, Thank you for a home that demanded work and gave love in exchange. If heaven is a country, let it be a country I can earn by learning the arts of mercy I practice here. I will not spend my life trying to build Kepler-452b out of my chest. I will not smooth the streets until their pockets of tenderness are gone. I will not wish the world to be less sharp because softness can only be learned at the edge of pain. I will keep my hands open to the small, messy duties, the kettle, the glove, the stew. I will answer the late phone, bear the untidy apology, walk in the rain. I will learn to be grateful for the imperfect because it is through the imperfect that I taste the infinite.